Welcome to the Birdhouse Podcast, where we talk about how to build a business, how to become a better version of ourselves, while we strive to fly up to the higher skies. My name is Alexander Guller, the CEO of the Birdhouse Agency, and I'm your host for this podcast. Welcome to the Birdhouse. Welcome to the Birdhouse Podcast. Today with me I have Stephen Wen. And today's topic is a bit different. What we're going to talk about time and different concepts of time and ideas about that. So, Stephen, I know you want to start off, so please take the word.
Yeah, so, do you guys have daylight savings there?
Yeah?
Because at least what it is in America and what it is here, we used to record at 8 a.m., now we're recording at 9 a.m.
Oh. For us, it's going to shift in, I think, half a month.
So yours hasn't shifted yet?
Hasn't? No, not yet.
No, ours shifted 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago? Oh.
Yeah, so that's why this morning I asked, I was like, hey, are we doing it in 15 minutes or an hour 15? Because normal time for me was the 15 minutes. And so, again, that's why I asked, and it's very interesting because, again, with anything from business to even just hooking up for a podcast and hanging out with friends across the world, there are some places that have different times. And have you heard about the Senate bill going through to cancel daylight savings?
No. Do they just want to cancel daylight saving?
They're going to say, hey, we're not going to switch the clocks anymore. So there's not going to be a spring forward, fall backwards.
Why?
Because there's between mental health issues, your circadian rhythm within your body, and all of that, there's actually more harm done every time that you switch than if you just kept the clocks the same. And so, because whenever somebody, say, has an extra hour in the day, they're not either not getting as much sleep or getting more sleep, and they have to adjust to that. And then if they're getting less sleep, that causes anxiety, depression, and all of that. And it's really confusing whenever you're people on the weekend. Now, it's a lot easier now that we have phones that automatically change. But without that, it just gets really confusing on, okay, when does school start? Do we have to adjust to the different time that the sun is up? Because you might be going to school one week when the sun's up, and then the next week the sun isn't even up yet. And so that's kind of where the arguments are. And it was both the Democrats and Republicans, it was almost a unanimous vote, which has never happened, especially in recent history.
Oh, yeah.
And it's unanimously voted to go through.
Funny. For me, I think it's more like when we talk about daylight saving, it's more like it's twice a year. So I don't think it's that often. And for that, I see your argument with the circadian rhythm and with sleep and so on, and it's also easier with the time zones and so on. But circadian rhythm, yes, twice a year you're going to mess it up a little bit with an hour, which I don't think is that much. And just circadian rhythm, yeah, maybe it takes 5 more days to recover from that hour.
Yeah,
but it's still not.
My thing is, I don't mind it because it prioritizes where the light is.
Yeah, and I think that's
so. It's more of a standard where it's like, okay, it shifts it an hour one way or the other to have the sun come up on a consistent time.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, because with the daylight savings you have more sunlit day, which I enjoy.
I will address something that I just noticed.
Fair enough. But as you said, you choose it, you change it for 2 weeks back.
Yeah, so we changed it. Let me just double check on the calendar. Yeah, I think it was two or not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, the
Mm.
13th.
Yeah, I think we changed it in 2 weeks about that.
Yeah. Um, and so, and just more concepts of time is something that I've learned and heard over the years is you can either um, say, so I showed him this earlier. I made a ring box for when I'm going to propose here soon, which exciting. But there are two ways to work on this. There's either A, you master a skill and you're able to do it quickly, or B, you can sub time with mastery. So, say I'm a master woodworker. This would take me maybe an hour and a half, say, or an hour, from start to finish if I'm just doing one. Because you have to drill, you have to glue it, you have to drill it, you have to sand it, you have to put foam in there, so on and so forth. Because this took me about an hour and a half from start to finish after I glued it. Um, and that's even whenever I messed up because I didn't have proper tools at the beginning because I was trying to do it a different way and all of that. But say I didn't have any woodworking skill, I had basically just basic concepts of saying, okay, I know how to glue things together so it's strong, I know how to cut things and all of that. I could probably spend 3 or 4 hours to make this exact same quality box. It's just going to take me twice as long. So when like you're paying for somebody's skill or time, you're either paying for their time or their skill. And so, like, say, whenever people are like, "Oh, I want to get compensated more because I've done X, Y, Z, and I'm worth more," that's because you're paying them because it takes them less time to do it than somebody else. So they're saying, "Hey, I need to get paid the same amount to do the job, but I'm able to do it more within a day."
Yeah, and I think I love what you're saying about that with the time and the skill, because for everybody, it's about reducing the time that you spend on something.
Hmm.
Because like as you said, you can everybody can go ahead and make a wooden box and glue some wood together. But are you willing to spend the time that is necessary to create that product with that quality? And
Yeah,
therefore it's quite useful to think about when
yeah,
you're selling and when you're buying and so on. It's just because you don't want to spend the necessary time to become that good at making that product. So like
yeah. And I'll show you a perfect example I have in my hands. I showed you the finish sign, but here was my first attempt at it.
oh
It's
yeah,
not as good as the second attempt. And this was me rushing through it. This says, "Will you be my fiance?" that I'm going to use. That was me rushing through it, not using, not really, I didn't really have a plan going into it. I did that in, I don't know, an hour or two, kind of thing where it just like, and I just realized it didn't look how I wanted it to.
mhm,
And so I took a step back and said, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this. I'm going to do a little bit more planning. And then I went on my computer, quickly designed up how I had it envisioned in my head. And then the second attempt is just leagues better in quality. I did
yeah.
this is finished, so it's harder to see on the camera, but like this is just um, leagues better than this.
Will you be my fiance?
Mhm.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and so
And
again, that's a literally a perfect example of saying, "Hey, I spent more time on the second side, and it looks 10 times, 20 times better, and I only spent an extra couple hours on it."
yeah, um, and like you didn't pay for anyone to do anything, did you not?
Mm-mm.
No. Yeah.
Well, I not with that. With this, I got a membership to a woodworking shop that I needed to do anyway. But that's just because I wanted access to a drill press, and I had a couple other projects I needed to work on there. Um, but so this one I tried to do by hand, but it's just I didn't have proper tools, and so I said, okay, I'm gonna spend $50 for a membership and use a drill press, and then I'm going to be working on a table set, chair set for when I move into my own place and all of that.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. And like, I always think about you have to know your own worth before you buy something else. Because like, let's say you can always take the job as a standard for like how much am I actually worth per hour.
Mhm.
Let's say you get paid $10 an hour. All right. So let's say you spend 5 hours on some project. That's $50. All right. Are you willing to like spend those 5 hours, or are you willing to spend $50 to not use those 5 hours and so on?
Yeah.
Like I understand that in some of those projects, it's also about the sentimental value, which comes from you making it. So of course that is quite more exponentially. But in many things, you can take that example when like
Yeah, it's like I spent $30 in materials and 2 hours in labor, which would be, say, equivalent for Etsy is equivalent for finding this is going to be about 150 bucks.
yeah
And that's what I would charge for this if
yeah
I were going to buy it. But I said, hey, I can make it and I can make it how I want it.
yeah yeah exactly. And the if you do it by yourself, it's also more customary. Like like you get whatever you want it to be like.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to go back to the about knowing your own worth, because that's also like a very useful tool in trying to discipline yourself. Because let's say you have, well, let's just keep the example going with $10 an hour, because that's easy to do math with. Let's say you sit around doing nothing for 3 hours. That's $30. Are you willing to pay somebody $30 for doing that shit you did in those 3 hours?
Mhm.
If you're not, well,
Yes.
then why are you doing it?
Yeah, and you have to look at it what you're getting paid and not what you're paying a master.
Yeah,
Because your skill that you're doing at your job, you say again, you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. We'll say that. If you're a master flipper and you're getting the most like burgers out, you might be only worth 15, 20 bucks an hour to McDonald's. But if you go to a 5-star restaurant or a 3-star restaurant or even a 1-star restaurant, like has like Michelin stars, not like just rating online. Um, like those, you're going to be much more worth flipping that burger because
yeah.
it's going to be a higher quality burger. It's going to be you're doing an experience with it.
yeah,
Uh, and so, like when you go home and you're like, "Hey, I need to install an outlet," and am I willing to pay an electrician who knows what he's doing, so you don't electrocute yourself and kill yourself? Or am I willing to spend the couple hours it is to do my research to get the electrical outlet to go run the wire or whatever you need to do? Am I willing to do that, or am I willing to pay somebody whatever 50 bucks, 100 bucks to put in an outlet for me?
yeah. And like I think it's very important that, like you said, you bring in the research, because like I know I'm dumb as fuck. Like if I'm starting
I'm not
something,
gonna say anything.
nodding agreeably.
You said it, not me.
Like I know I'm dumb as fuck. Like I don't know how
Yeah.
to set up an electrical outlet. I don't know how to set up electricity, my internet,
Yeah.
my lots of stuff. So that's why I also want an expert who is actually trained in doing so to do it.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't
for
have.
me, like for me, it's I've done projects before where I've had to put in outlets and I've done construction projects. And so for me, I'd much rather just do it myself because I know it's done right.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I get that.
and again, that's just where we're too different. It's you have different experiences than I do.
Oh yeah,
There's things that you can do. I'm sure you've helped your dad sell cars. I don't know the first thing about that. I'm just using that example. I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if that's true, but like with your dad being a car salesperson, you can go to him and easily ask him. I don't have my dad's in the medical field, and I don't know anything about that. And so like you can go ask your dad saying, "Hey, can you help me buy a car? I need to go to Germany,"
Oh yeah,
or things like that.
exactly, exactly. My dad and my dad has been 40 years in the business, and so like he knows a lot of the stuff that is very
Mhm.
good to know. So also like in the latest years, he has also become more of a advisor than actually salesperson, because like people call him and say, "Is this a good idea?" And no, stupid.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
also and
Go
then
ahead.
you have to, whenever you get a damage on your car, you have to like write a report in some sense.
Yeah, you have to do a claim for the insurance.
Yeah, exactly. And my dad's doing that for some businesses because he has spent so long time doing the.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, business worth versus personal worth is also different
Mm,
because there, whatever job you're doing, there's only so much worth that that position is. I don't care if you're making $1,000 an hour. There's a cap on how much you're worth.
yeah,
Even like Jeff Bezos, if he what he did is like say he's making I don't know $1 million an hour and growing in his net worth or whatever. Um, he's not doing that through doing a standard job. He built a system to have people work for him. So his worth per hour is him sitting on his butt, and he's able to gain that.
yeah,
But but like when he hires somebody to pack Amazon boxes or um, deliver something, that's only worth X amount to the business. And a business needs you more than you need a business. And in the sense of like, I can go and get another job. I am worth more to a business if I've been trained because if you switch out personnel every 6 months, it takes time, money, effort. You're going to be losing profit for the first many months that they're there because they're going to have to be trained in whatever system that they're brought into because every business does everything differently. And I just heard something this morning that was like the reason CEOs have such steep requirements for entry level jobs because they don't want to train people, but they also don't pay people enough after they're trained to make it worth
yeah.
hire
Them
keeping
staying.
them on.
Yeah, yeah,
And so with that, again, it's their CEOs aren't realizing that the time that they're putting into employees is worth giving them that raise and matching that offer that they are from somebody else.
it's investing. You can
Yeah.
see it as investing.
And they're just saying like, "Oh, we already have them, so they're ours." That's not true anymore. We're not getting paid to retire in pensions anymore. We're getting paid by the hour and putting it in 401k. It's a different type of long-term investment. And but at the same time, there's only again only a cap that somebody's worth, and if they're not bringing in what they're worth, they're going to be expense to the company. Um, but like for a lot of people see say IT as an example, they see that as a expense rather than an investment. But if you have a good IT team, it's saying, okay, we're keeping the computers up and running. The runtime on the computers are XYZ. They upgraded this computer and it goes 10% faster. So can we make 10% more on that?
Yeah, and like with improving the tools with the computer and so on. With also back with the flipping burgers. Like let's say a restaurant flips 1,000 burgers.
Hmm.
Like if a normal person flips 50 burgers in 1 hour, and you can flip 100 burgers in 1 hour, that's a lot. He can do it in 10 hours while the other person does it in 20 hours. Like it's a simple example and then quite
Yeah.
unrealistic, but you
And
get it.
but like, is that worth twice the amount of money, even if you're doing twice the amount of work?
Yeah,
And that's a thing of owner, and that's the decision. Are they willing to pay you that? And because sometimes doing twice the amount of the labor is not worth twice the amount of money.
Yeah, and that's really important to understand.
And people don't realize that it's not a one for one growth.
Yeah, not a one-to-one correlation now. Yeah,
So,
and I also think like the name escapes me, but one person who studied the wage gap between men and women found out that if you stay 14% more time, that would lead to a 40% increase in pay.
yeah.
Because you meet earlier, you stay later, you get noticed, you bring in more work.
Yeah. And you're honestly more productive in that 14% of time because I don't know if you've heard, it's like with attention span, it takes 15, 20 minutes to get into the zone.
Yeah,
And
into the first
so
zone. Yeah,
spending that extra 14% at your job allows you to get into that zone. And usually the people who are spending that 14 extra percent, one, are the people who go above and beyond, but two, they're the people that know how they work best. And they're going to do the most, try to work the most efficient in that. Versus the person that's just coming there, clocking in, clocking out. I just had an interview yesterday, and I got brought in front of the owner by the operations manager, and he said, "We don't normally do this, but you are a person that's more looking for a career position than you are just a clock in, clock out position." And
oh
I
yeah,
said, "That is very fair, yes." And and I'm willing to go above and beyond. And they're like, great. And if you show your worth, we're willing to put you on an ownership track in the next year or two to be part ownership if you show us that you're worth that. Because you're trying, you're showing us that you want to stay here for the next 5, 10, 20 years.
and also like then you get an incentivized pay, a stay. You
Yeah.
have a reason to actually work
Yeah. And the
more.
first year or two, it might be I take a lower pay cut because I need to work up in that to get to that track.
Yeah,
And that is fine as long as I'm making enough to support myself.
keep the
And
wheels
there's
going.
people think like, oh, you have to be able to live by yourself. It's like, no, you might have to live with two, three other people to share rent, and that's okay. And you don't have to go get $5 Starbucks every day.
Yeah, like
Like there's
like
so
if
many people are like, oh, it's the standard of living. I can't live. And it's like you can't live your lifestyle on that.
yeah.
You can live a poor lifestyle on that. Just get a couple roommates and go find a place and just eat at home. Don't eat out. Save money.
Like Gary Vee also uses that example. Like he worked for a lot of time and just spent nothing, and he saved up a lot of money. Like if you really wanted to, you could live off of
Hmm.
pasta and pesto,
I
and save
I
up a
lived on
whole lot
ramen
of.
noodles last summer. I spent 30 cents on a meal and water.
Like if you do that every day for 1 year, I can guarantee you save up a lot of money if you, of course, don't spend all the other money on every other stupid
Yeah.
thing.
Now, if you do that, please be careful. Don't don't kill yourself over just eating one type of food because one type of food cannot sustain you.
Yeah,
So add some eggs, add some protein, add some green onions, make it make it an actual meal. Don't just cheap out and say, "Oh, I'm just going to eat ramen noodles because it's 30 cents a piece." Make sure you have your nutrition.
very good, and that is actually very important.
Yeah, I want to make a disclaimer there because I do not want to get sued, and
Yeah, it's
even if because I know not much people are listening to this now, but if people listen to this in 5 years, like
yeah, guys, don't be stupid with your food. Eat proper,
don't
but you
be
can
don't
you
be don't be dumb like him.
don't be dumb as fuck like me. And yeah, yeah, but in pasta you don't get all the different necessary nutrients and vitamins and so on. So you kind of have
The only thing that you can live off is breast milk, and I don't think your mom's gonna give that to you all your life. So don't go asking your mom. So don't ask your mom for some. That'd be not great.
That would be fucking disgusting, though.
But it's really true. It's the only thing that humans can live off of sustainably for a whole lifetime.
But is it though? Like,
it has all the base nutrients that you need. That's why babies can live off of it for years.
Oh, yeah. I did not know that.
There's no other food out there that's like natural. There might be some processed stuff that tries to throw everything in, but it's going to be absolutely nasty. But that's the only like natural thing that humans can live off of. Same with cows. Cows can live off of milk because that has all the nutrients that cows need. Hence why the mothers produce it.
Well, yeah, I get that, but like, at some point they also switch to grass,
it's because it's not going to be sustaining because everyone living off of a cow living off of its own self it can't do that. But if you have one cow that's eating grass and bringing in outside nutrients, then it can produce enough to sustain a life. So that's why we switch, because again, if you think about it, the matter cannot be created or destroyed, and if a cow tries to keep all the nutrients in itself, it's eventually there's gonna be too many cows for that nutrient.
Yeah.
And so they have to eat grass and all of that to get enough to produce for the younglings and all that.
And I'm Anakin. I'm gonna go kill them all and eat them as burgers and steaks and yumminess.
Like I get what you're saying, but I'm still like a bit like skeptical.
But it's a weird concept that if you haven't thought about it before, it can rack your brain.
Yeah,
it's gonna wreck yours anyway. But
yeah, like with there's going to be the same amount of atoms always.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so if you try to close the loop and there's a growing population, that's not sustainable. And that's where, again, I'm going to talk about this without morality involved in this. Because I had a conversation with my mom, and I'm like, here's what my real stance is, and here's what my stance is without bringing in the morality to it. Because a lot of people think, like, population control is super bad. And I'm like, if you look 300 years in the future, we're growing at such a rate of humans that we can't sustain ourselves. And because we're only have what's available to us on Earth. And so, like if you take, because the morality is, what do? Do you limit when people can have kids, how many kids they have and all of that? No, that's inhumane.
Yeah, but they did that in China. They did that in China.
Yeah, and that's very inhumane and absolutely horrid. And hence why it's like my real stance is no, we cannot control population and do depopulation and mass murder and all of that, because that's just not good. But at the same time, if you look at it purely as we only have X amount of resources, how do we divvy those up so we can sustain as many lives as possible with that?
Well, I think it's always fun to talk about overpopulation and
yeah. And again, we're talking in theory. We are not talking in morality in this, because in morality, absolutely do not depopulate. I'm going to just say that is not a thing. We're not going to be Hitlers. We're not going to be Stalins. We're not going to be China. We're not going to be people like that, because that's just awful and inhumane.
Yeah, like they're not remembered for the good stuff.
Yeah.
to be exact.
But again, it's just like in theory, communism is good if you take out greed.
Oh yeah, but
it's an amazing system if you take out greed. But with greed, it is an awful system.
Yeah, and also like it doesn't reward people for their work. Like it only like the base of communism is also like if everybody works equally, and nobody's going to work equally. So you take out the individuality out of it.
Yep. But what I do like about if you did true communism, I'm going to take the concept of communism not just from the Communism Manifesto, but just the general concept of it, because it's very much a very shared, no one owns anything, everyone like is sharing and all of that, and that is what pure communism is. Not what we see in China and when Russia was communism and all of that. That is not a great example of what the true concept of communism is. But my thing is like, hey, if you're working across the city in a mine and you're too tired to get home, and just being able to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, I'm too tired to drive home. Can I crash at this place? Because guess what? No one owns anything. Then it's okay, great. Like, yes, that might be your property, but you must be allowed to bring people in. Like, that kind of concept is absolutely amazing, because it brings a safety aspect into it where you're saying, hey, I'm not safe to drive home, I can't do this. But as soon as you bring in the greed, the people taking advantage of things and all of that, that's where the system just goes downhill really fast, because then people will try to freeload and not spend any of their money on food or whatever to do that. But if you're able to go and say, hey, I can't make it to where I'm supposed to be staying, can I stay at your place and have a meal? And because that's my rations anyway, then great. But if not, then it sucks.
Yeah. So very
sorry, logic game.
Very good, but practice, nope.
In reality, no.
Nah. No good.
If you can't tell, I've had these conversations before.
Yeah, it's always a fun conversation.
Yeah,
and I think that's a good place to stop for today. Communism is good in theory, but bad in practice. In reality.
Reality.
So
reality.
So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Birdhouse Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on my Instagram @thebirdhouseagency and share it to your friends and family, or rate it on Apple Podcast or Anchor. My name is Alexander Gulager, and I will see you at the next episode.